My name is Dane Brown. I am 31 years old. I am a spoken word poet and a creative consultant.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Hazel and I am 32 years of age. I am a professional actress and singer.
When the first case was reported last year, March, it created a lot of confusion, concern, particularly because our industry is so based on activities where people have to interact with each other. Everybody was concerned as to where we were going to go. Events are being cancelled left, right, and center. A lot of things that people were depending on to feed their families and to carry out their lives were just being cut off at the feet and weren't quite sure where to go. So it was disappointing is a word, frustrating. We were hopeful that it wasn't going to last for a long time, but here we are a year later. Yeah, it was very weird for us, very difficult for us at the start of this pandemic.
In 2019, December, I was casted in a theatrical production that was slated to run until March, April of 2020. This was an exciting endeavor, one that would have been along the lines of the more lucrative kinds of opportunities for theatre practitioners in Jamaica. It was something I really had been looking forward to reaping a lot from in terms of experience, as well as being able to supplement what would have been my regular income. I was entering into the world of being self-employed. Of course, as we saw COVID-19 coming closer and closer to the island, we knew that we were going to be hit hard as an industry, but we didn't fully understand the brunt of it until it actually happened. So in March, that week that COVID hit Jamaica, and when we were told that immediately all theaters were closed and all other spaces for entertainment would be closed, that meant that, of course, our play had to come to an abrupt close. And unfortunately, after being closed for so many weeks and just not being able to maintain the property, I suppose, the entire theater itself closed where we were staging our production. So that had us feeling as though there were pretty much no chances of us remounting the play anytime soon. So you can imagine the effects of this pandemic has been hard felt by our industry.
It was very broad-based. It was at the start of it when we weren't really sure what people were doing and what we were supposed to do. So people were wondering if, boy, should we wear masks to our events? Should we go to the events? Nobody was really sure what to do. So people were canceling, keeping events. People did not want to go to any events. And it was really weird for performers, for hosts, which are both things that I do. We weren't sure what to do. People were calling us trying to figure it out. We really didn't know. It was a very chaotic and hectic time for us. The year 2020 was the year that I had decided to get married, and it really kind of affected things because my plan was to build up a good financial base up into December when I had planned to get married. It really turned out that that couldn't happen, and as the pandemic and the various lockdowns and curfews and gathering restrictions ensued, I just had to end up moving up the wedding from December to August with a smaller group of people and just get married because we decided, why wait? No clue when this pandemic was gonna end, and it was just something that we decided that we had to do. So it was an interesting year for me in that I got the big plus of getting married to the love of my life, but at the same time I took a really big hit financially because all work dried up, all types of possibilities and stuff like that I spent so many years working on, so many years building up my resume for, just dried right up. So it was kind of a bittersweet year, more sweet than bitter.
So as I mentioned, professionally, I was in the middle of a transition. I had intentions of allowing a consultancy to develop, consultancy in communication, which is my background. while I would also be focused on a few other projects that are important to me. I would have had the flexibility to do that, as well as I would be involved in theater. However, all of that came to a halt and pretty much a standstill. A lot of the earlier days of COVID hitting Jamaica just kind of saw me being at home with my family and just trying to maneuver day to day without necessarily working in a full-time situation. And I know that that might sound a bit absurd. Vocalizing it, sometimes you feel like an irresponsible person as an adult to be going weeks on end without working. However, I will say that that time gave me rest, which I needed, as well as it allowed me to reignite a lot of creative ideas and things that I wanted to work on, and it gave me the allowance of time and just the bandwidth to be able to create. And that's really invaluable, being someone that is accustomed to a very busy schedule and juggling many things at once. So being able to just kind of focus on certain creative projects, such as a podcast that I launched in the midst of that time, and I would say that it was quite a success. You know, the podcast was part of an outreach activity that would have been part of one of the initiatives that I really wanted to focus on in this transition of my life. And that initiative is an organization I started called Girls First International. So the podcast being able to take off was a huge testimony for me in that time frame. The pandemic actually did affect me in so many ways, in terms of even relationally. I certainly think that this time highlighted how much of an extroverted person that I am. The fact that I really do thrive on my relationships and physical contact with people.
Generally for the industry, everything jumped to online. We definitely missed some things with the physical connection aspect that is so important in entertainment, but we were able to go to spaces online where we're keeping online parties, online events, online shows, and we were still kind of working through the kinks of them. What were the best platforms to use? What were the best spaces to keep them in? What were the best times? How are we going to make money from it? All of those things we were still working out. And I'm not quite sure, to be honest, if we've actually figured out how to deal with it yet. We're just still kind of taking our spaces and taking our way through it. For me, it meant pivoting to that's the word for 2020, I guess. It meant pivoting to something that was similar to what I used to do, but was a totally different industry, which was video production. And I pivoted to that so that I could really focus on something that was within my skill set, but at the same time was usable during this time. I did a production for my church at the end of the year, and then I started working with a video production company as a producer.
With audience numbers being smaller, that affects everything across the board. And so we have seen multiple theater spaces having to close. That has been quite hard to adapt to. As a result, persons have tried to build their online presence and profiles. Interestingly for me, during the rest of the course of 2020, after that initial hit in March, I had been given opportunities to do short films or to be part of other film projects, one by the government of Jamaica. And there are just different things that I had been able to participate in as an actress that, you know, while they may not have been financially rewarding, they certainly did give me an opportunity to do what makes me feel fulfilled and to serve as an open door for other opportunities as well. And some of them I was remunerated. I'm just grateful that I still had a chance to exercise my craft, which is really important. A few persons have tried to create virtual experiences, more so for the diaspora, the audience abroad. These tend to be the persons that are more inclined to spend for products like theater online, but the general population of Jamaica prefer coming to enjoy these types of events in person, understandably.
coming out of this pandemic, it's definitely going to be some hybrid version of what we had during the pandemic and what we had before. There really is no substitute for the physical connection that people are desiring. It's one of the reasons why we're having these big problems all across the world with people trying to keep the curfew restrictions, with people keeping the social distancing restrictions, because people want to connect. It's in our nature. So we're definitely gonna have to find a way to get back to that type of connection, or some type of connection physically after the curfew. But the types of spaces that technology has opened up for us means that we definitely have to incorporate those things going forward. And I mean, the entertainment industry has not been one to shy away from technology, but no, I think we're going to have to embrace it in different ways. We're going to have maybe some hybrid concerts where we're doing live shows that are streamed across the world with fans. Like, interaction when performers have their fans there is an amazing. It's way different than when a performer is just performing to a camera. So it's gonna be interesting to see how we develop these types of hybrid concerts, how we develop these whole online platforms, these content hubs, these different spaces that we can use to keep people's interest as we go forward. So I think it's gonna be interesting as we merge the two, both during the pandemic and the pre-pandemic thing, for a post-pandemic future.
The online space is evidently where we have to see more development. I see there being more actors and actresses from theatre who will have to transition into film. They're two different spaces and require different skill sets. So there is a learning curve for some of us, but I do hope that it means that there will be an increase in projects that we can be part of. At one point, it used to feel as though these projects were so few and so far between, and that it would be very rare for new actors to be invited to participate. But now it feels as though that has opened up a little bit more, and perhaps with things being multiplied in volume in the online space, that means more visibility from persons abroad as well, being able to see the talent that exists here. And the truth is, to create content is not that hard as long as you have a device and you have access to the internet. You pretty much can really make the most of little resources, and that is one of the beauty of the creative industry.
Something I want to leave with people is, don't let it stop your life. I've benefited greatly from getting married during the pandemic. For one, the wedding was much cheaper than it would have been. So hint, you guys have couples out there that you guys want to get married, go and do it now. It's way cheaper and you don't have to invite everybody, and it's a pandemic, you get me? Don't let it stop your life. Find different ways to connect with humans. We might not be able to do it physically, but don't isolate yourself. And make sure you have fun. Give yourself space to breathe. Give yourself space to have fun, because we're denying ourselves that in this time, and that's our real problem. So give yourself space to have fun. Your mental health will thank you for it.
Last year, this time, I would not have guessed that we would still have been in this situation and still have been under such restricted conditions. But I'm grateful. I think that there's still a lot to be grateful for, even when there are so many deaths around us, which is another thing that I think has impacted so many of us individually as well as just as a people. There's a cloud of despair that we just seem to be operating in. But as hard as it is, we have to find the glimmers of hope to be our guiding light through this fog that we are going through right now. Thanks for listening.